There comes a moment in life when you suddenly realize you're tired of reacting, tired of explaining, tired of trying to earn respect from people who never truly respected you in the first place. The world teaches you that when someone disrespects you, you must strike back. You must speak louder, prove yourself harder, teach them a lesson. But Stoicism teaches something entirely different. It doesn't teach you to win the argument. It teaches you to leave the game. Because the person who truly hurts you is not the one who insults you, but the one who controls your reactions. When you get angry, they win. When you justify yourself, they win. When you try desperately to be understood, they still win. But when you stay silent at the right moment, the power shifts. Epictetus once said, "It is not the event that disturbs you, but your view of it." Yet what very few people truly understand is this: your greatest strength doesn't lie in how you react, but in your ability not to react. Silence is not running away. Silence is not weakness. Silence, when used correctly, is a form of mental dominance. No shouting, no defending, no striking back, just pulling your energy inward and letting others sit in the emptiness your silence creates. Today we will go through 7 Stoic silent strikes, not to get revenge, but to reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. 7 ways you make those who once underestimated you regret it, not because of what you do to them, but because you are no longer someone they can control. Quizás Part 1. Silent strike number 1, disappear with dignity. There comes a moment when you must ask yourself directly, am I staying because I love or because I'm afraid to leave? When someone repeatedly disrespects you, dismisses your words, crosses your boundaries, and ignores your feelings, your first instinct is to confront them. You want them to understand. You want them to admit their wrongs. You want them to change. But there is a painful truth Stoicism forces you to face. Someone who truly respects you will never make you beg for respect. Epictetus would ask you a very simple question. If they have already hurt you, why are you hurting yourself by staying? That is when you realize the strongest silent strike is not arguing back, but disappearing with dignity. No long messages, no emotional speeches, no final words. Just simply no longer replying to their text, no longer showing up. No longer trying to fix something you weren't the one who broke. Someone who disrespects you always bets on one thing. They believe you won't dare to leave. They believe you will always let it slide. They believe you will return after every wound. And that belief allows them to repeat the same behavior. When you walk away in silence without drama, without spectacle, without an audience, you send the clearest message possible: I will not stay where my value is dismissed. Your absence becomes a mirror. No yelling, no blaming, no lecturing. It simply reflects. They will have to face the emptiness you leave behind. No one to unload their anger on. No one to control. No one who will always endure everything. This is not punishment. This is liberation. You don't disappear to make them hurt. You disappear so you stop hurting. And the paradox is, only when you stop needing them to regret, only when you stop hoping one day they will understand, does your silence begin to haunt them. Not because you defeated them, but because you finally stopped defeating yourself. Part 2, silent strike number 2, level up in private. After you disappear with dignity, the most dangerous thing you can do next is not trying to prove anything. No vague posts, no showing off your transformation, no proving to the world that you're doing better. You simply level up in silence because the people who once underestimated you are not afraid of your words. What they fear most is the day they look back and realize you're no longer on the same level. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become great in front of others. It teaches you to become strong in front of yourself. You begin changing without announcing it to anyone. You read more. You train more consistently. You eat better. You sleep on time. You become more disciplined in the things no one sees. No applause, no compliments, no audience, just you and your quiet transformation. Those who doubted you still assume you're the same. Those who belittled you still believe you'll return to your old patterns. They rely on your old version to feel secure. But when you level up in silence, you do something psychologically uncomfortable. You become unpredictable. They no longer know you. They no longer hold your weaknesses. They no longer know how you'll react. You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't explain. You simply move forward. And what unsettles them most is not your success, but your indifference toward their opinion. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, live it." When you level up in silence, you live that philosophy every day. You no longer need to prove you're worthy. You simply become undeniable. One day they will see you again, not as someone seeking approval, not as someone trying to be understood. They won't know how many nights you battled yourself, how many times you rebuilt yourself, how much discipline it took. All they will see is one thing: you are no longer the person they once dismissed. And all of that was built in silence. Part 3, silent strike number 3, become emotionally unavailable. There is a very clear moment in your journey of maturity, the moment you realize not everyone deserves access to your emotions. In the past, when someone provoked you, you reacted. When you were misunderstood, you explained. When you were hurt, you opened up. You let people in. And that was exactly what made you easy to control. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become cold. It teaches you to choose carefully where you place your heart. Becoming emotionally unavailable does not mean you stop feeling. It means you no longer react to every provocation. You no longer offer your emotions to those who never valued them. You no longer let every word they say turn into a storm inside you. Epictetus said it bluntly: people don't hurt you, it's your permission that allows the hurt. When someone disrespects you, they expect a familiar script. You get angry, you get sad, you explain, you defend yourself. Those reactions give them something very dangerous, a sense of control. But when you stay calm, when you remain unshaken, when you refuse to step into the emotional arena, they lose their power. You don't need to block them. You don't need to make dramatic announcements. You simply stop offering emotional access the way you used to. You still live. You still smile. You're still kind. But they feel it clearly. They can no longer touch you the way they once did. This is the kind of strength that confuses people the most, because they can't see anger to fight against. They can't see pain to manipulate. They can't see need to exploit. You're not shutting down emotion. You're managing emotion. You're not turning off your heart. You're placing it behind a locked door. And from that moment on, you are no longer someone who gets pulled around by other people's behavior. You become the one who chooses where to stand, not the one being thrown back and forth by emotional waves. Part 4, silent strike number 4, setting boundaries in silence. Most people think that to have boundaries, you must state them clearly. You must explain. You must warn. You must let others know they've gone too far. But Stoicism sees boundaries in an entirely different way. The strongest boundary is the one that doesn't need to be announced. When you talk too much about your limits, you unintentionally teach others how to negotiate with them. They try to push a little more. They look for excuses. They justify their behavior. They use emotion to make you soften. And slowly, piece by piece, your boundary erodes while you're busy explaining. The Stoic does not do this. They don't argue about boundaries. They live their boundaries. When a message makes them feel disrespected, they don't reply. When an invitation treats them as a backup option, they don't go. When a relationship forces them to shrink, they don't continue. No speeches, no announcements, no need for approval, just consistent action. You'll find this very strange at first. People get confused. They think you changed. They don't understand what's happening. But the truth is you didn't change. You simply stopped allowing the old behaviors to continue. Setting boundaries in silence is a test for yourself, not for them. It asks you a very direct question. Do you respect yourself enough to endure the short-term discomfort of saying no? Because when you stop, you will notice some people leave. Some people get angry. Some people try to drag you back into your old role. That is the sign your boundary has touched, the exact place they don't want touched. Stoicism does not encourage revenge. It encourages self-mastery. And self-mastery begins with small decisions. No one applauds. Not replying, not participating, not giving energy to places that only take. You don't need to prove your boundary is reasonable. Your boundary doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It only needs to be right for you. When you protect yourself through silence, you're not just building a boundary, you're building an inner fortress. Part 5, silent strike number 5, withdraw access. There is a difficult truth to accept, but an incredibly freeing one. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Many people don't truly respect you. They're simply used to having access to you. Access to message you anytime. Access to unload their emotions onto you. Access to rely on your patience. Access to use your kindness like a free resource. And when you start feeling tired, they don't think they've gone too far. They just think you're changing. Stoicism has a very clear term for this moment, withdrawing access. This doesn't mean you become harsh. It doesn't mean you're punishing anyone. It simply means you stop allowing people to touch you unconditionally. You don't need to declare, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You don't need ultimatums. You don't need to cut ties in anger. You simply respond less, show up less, share less, open the door less. And here's something fascinating. When you withdraw access silently, people begin to panic. Not because they're afraid of losing you, but because they're afraid of losing their ability to use you before they were certain you would always be there. Always reply, always explain, always endure. But now they're no longer sure. That uncertainty makes them uneasy. Not because their love grows deeper, but because they no longer control their place in your life. Stoicism teaches whoever controls your attention controls you. And when you withdraw that attention, the power returns to where it belongs back to you. You don't need to turn others into enemies. You just need to stop making them the center of your world. Withdrawing access is not an act against someone. It's an act of returning to yourself. From the moment you stop being always available to everyone, you become rare. And in human psychology, whatever is rare naturally becomes valuable. Part 6, silent strike number 6, silent observation. There is a stage in the journey of maturity when you no longer need to say anything more. You only need to watch. Not to look with judgment, but to look with clear-eyed awareness, free of illusions. Previously you reacted, you explained, you made excuses for others. You searched for reasons to believe maybe they didn't mean it. But when you enter Stoic silence, you begin to do something entirely different. You observe, no intervention, no correction, no rescuing their image inside your head anymore. You simply watch how they treat you when you no longer serve their emotions. You watch how they respond when you don't give in to old habits. You watch whether they come to you for who you are or because you used to be their dumping ground. And in that silence, the truth reveals itself quickly. No promise stands firm when exposed to the light of repeated behavior. No apology holds weight if it is followed by the same pattern of harm. Stoicism doesn't teach you to believe people. It teaches you to believe what is happening, not merely what is being said. When you observe in silence, you can clearly see who is gentle only when they need you, who cares only when they fear losing you, who is polite to your face but distant behind your back, who values you even when you give them nothing more. This strike does not hurt others immediately, but it makes them reveal themselves. Because once you stop reacting, people can no longer perform. You don't interrogate, you don't confront, you don't demand they change. You simply step back and let them be themselves in their most unvarnished truth. And oddly enough, the moment you stop trying to fix others, you see them most clearly. Silent observation is the move of someone past impulsivity. It is the sign of an inner life mature enough not to need to beat anyone, only to know what stands before them. You are no longer blinded by words. You follow actions. You are no longer carried away by feelings. You follow the facts. And from that point, your next decisions are no longer based on hope, but on clear perception. Part 7, silent strike number 7, success without proving anything, silent success. There is a kind of power that makes people curious, unsettled, and unable to attack you. It's when you succeed without announcing it. No showing off, no declarations, no responding with achievements. You simply live better each day. Stoicism sees success not as a performance needing recognition, but as the natural consequence of quiet discipline. You don't need to show anyone how far you've gone. You only need to make sure you're going in the right direction. People who once underestimated you usually expect one thing: that someday you'll come back to prove them wrong, that you'll need their acknowledgement to complete your story. But silent success destroys that entire script. Because when you no longer need their validation, they no longer have any role in your narrative. You don't win with a speech. You don't get even by waving a trophy in their face. You simply walk past them quietly as if their past criticisms never existed in your world. And that is what shakes them the most. They no longer know whether they still matter or whether they've already been left behind. Silent success means you upgrade your environment, raise the quality of your relationships, improve your health, mindset, and finances. Do things you once believed you couldn't do, not to show someone, but so you can live aligned with a better version of yourself. Stoicism understands this deeply. Those who are secure in their value don't need to respond to disrespect with spotlight. They respond with the depth of the life they are living. One day, those who underestimated you will hear about you from someone else, not through your justifications, but through the results you've created. And in that moment, they may be surprised. They may regret. They may silently admit they were wrong. But to you, none of that is the center anymore. Because when you achieve success without needing to prove it, you also gain something even rarer, a peace that needs no audience. Outro, silence when it becomes strength. If you've made it all the way here, it means something inside you has shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle movement, but a very real one. You've begun to understand you don't need to win every confrontation. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You don't need to hold on to relationships that drain the life out of you. Because a person's true strength is not in how loudly they speak, but in how silently they can walk away without losing themselves. Stoicism never taught us to run away from the world. It taught us to choose how to exist within it without letting it bend us. You have seen silence to walk away with dignity, silence to level up, silence to become emotionally unavailable to what is unworthy, silence to establish boundaries, silence to withdraw access, silence to observe the truth, and silence to succeed without proving anything. 7 silent strikes, not to punish others, but to return to yourself the power to own your life. From this moment on, you no longer need to chase validation, no longer need to explain the choices that bring you peace, no longer need to stay in places where your value must constantly be negotiated. You only need one thing: clarity with yourself. And when you are clear enough, your actions will speak for you without justification, without debate, without final words. Some people will not understand your silence. Some will call you cold. Some will say you've changed. But the truth is, you are not changing to please them. You are changing to return to who you really are. If there is only one thing you should carry with you after this journey, it is this: you do not owe anyone access to your soul. You have the right to choose who stays, who stops here, and who becomes just a quiet memory behind you. From now on, you don't need to say anything more. You are the message, and your silence is the final strength. If today's words touched you, if you feel something inside you has awakened, press like as a signal to yourself, I am choosing awareness. Subscribe to the channel if you want to continue walking the path of inner discipline, where silence becomes power and peace becomes strength. And if you know someone who needs this, someone caught in chaos, someone suffering in silence, share this video with them. It may be exactly what they need to hear right now. Write an affirmation for yourself in the comments: my silence is my strength. Because starting today, you no longer need to speak more to prove your worth. Your presence and even your absence already carry enough weight.